who are in a state of invasion. Welcome back to the Immigration Answers Show. My name is Jim Hacking. This is episode number 545 of the show. We're really glad to have you guys with us. Please let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Today's going to be a very special episode, sort of like when I was a kid and they would say, tune in this week for a very special episode of Dallas or Magnum PI. We have our own Magnum PI here with us today. His name's Allan. He is a former USCIS asylum officer. There's a Z missing at the end of his name there, Hooli. If you could fix that for me. Allan Schwartz is with us. We're glad to have him. And he's graciously agreed to come and answer questions that I have and that you might have. We'll be probably doing it a little bit differently today. Leave your comments in the chat if you have any questions for Allan, and I will take them. I told Allan that we probably go for a half hour with him, but if he has more time and you guys have more questions, maybe we'll go a little bit longer. We'll see how it is. So it's not going to be like our normal show. If you just have general non-asylum related questions, you might want to just come back tomorrow at 4. Otherwise, we're going to cover all kinds of things because asylum touches so many pieces of immigration. But let me go ahead and before I do, let me go ahead and bring on Allan. Let me pull up his bio real quickly so that I can give him a proper introduction. Let me do that real quick. All right, here we go. Allan, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation.
You got it. You got it. So Allan is a former, as I mentioned, USCIS asylum officer. He's also worked for Homeland Security. He's the founder and director at US Visa Consulting Services, and he has over 35 years of professional immigration experience. He also offers a service that we're going to talk about at the back end, which is he can help you with your asylum interview. And in fact, he offers to review your application and go over the whole case as if it's an actual asylum interview. So Allan, thank you. How are you doing?
Great. Very well. I'm looking forward to answering any type of asylum related questions. As you mentioned, I worked for USCIS as an asylum officer over 20 years, for 23 years. So I've conducted maybe over 10,000 asylum interviews during my career with the government. And as you mentioned, I'm doing these mock or prep interviews at this point for individuals that have a scheduled interview. I do this service now, and I think it provides a very valuable service. Anybody who has an interview scheduled, and I'd be happy to answer any asylum related questions.
How did you end up working at the asylum office?
Actually, I'm from St. Louis originally, and after graduating from undergraduate school, I took a job at the International Institute in St. Louis. I worked for 4 years within the refugee resettlement area. Then I went ahead and got my master's degree. I worked for a resettlement in a couple different national agencies for about 7 years. Then I took the job as an asylum officer back in 1996. And I worked for over 20 years with the government. And so my background is refugee asylee work, and I enjoy it. I've always enjoyed it. And that's why in my retirement, I just retired a few years ago. I thought this would be a good segment to help individuals, to basically let them know what it's like to be interviewed. I know one of the big fear factors is what's the asylum officer going to ask me during the interview, and I think that this service that I provide is going to be very very helpful to them.
Allan, talk to us a little bit about the training that you got in order to be an asylum officer, and then is that much different than the training that they get now?
Well, there's pretty extensive training. It's basically there was a month-long course that we took on asylum law. the asylum can be quite complex. The laws can be quite complex at times, and it's a very extensive training. I did that when I initially started, and then I also took another training in basic immigration law, and this would be, for example, cases related to naturalization or getting a green card and so forth. So I did that training as well. And then throughout the years, there's always we had weekly meetings, training sessions where we'd be updated, current asylum law, what's going on politically. There are some political aspects of this as well. So we get the weekly trainings and also look at some court cases that are related to asylum and analyze those court cases and so forth. So those weekly trainings that we had throughout my over 20 years were also very good, very, very essential for keeping up to date. And yep. So I think the extending is quite extensive.
What was your favorite part of the job? What was your least favorite part of the job?
Well, I think my favorite part of the job was, listening to somebody sitting in front of me who has a very clear, legitimate asylum claim, and listening to their story, what happened to them. I mean, the interviews would normally last a couple of hours, and so when I had a really good case, I felt really empowered by making a decision, and obviously if it was a strong case, I would be favorable. I would give them a grant of asylum, and that made me feel really good, because there are people from all over the world, as as everybody knows, there's conflicts all over the world, and people come to the U.S. For safety and to basically escape their home countries, and they have a fear of going back. So it's always made me feel good to help those individuals here in the United States. That's why I started doing refugee resettlement work in St. Louis at the Institute, and I continued throughout my career. So the least favorite is, well, I guess the least favorite would be if there are unfortunately some cases that are essentially not, maybe they are not legitimate cases, or maybe cases that are frivolous in some manner, and having to go through those cases and going through the inconsistencies and the discrepancies and so forth, and realizing that this is not a strong case. And that's unfortunate. I mean, a lot of people come here because they for various reasons, they don't want to return to their home countries. But in asylum, it has to meet certain criteria. So if I had a case that was like that, that was that was difficult. And cases that were even good cases, I would say, that maybe came solely for economic reasons. Which unfortunately does not meet the criteria of an asylee. So those cases, even though I felt sympathetic to the applicant, it wouldn't meet the criteria. And those would be hard cases for me in some respects to refer or deny. But that's the law. So.
You mentioned sometimes cases would appear before you that were deemed frivolous. Can you talk about what are the signs of a frivolous case, or how do you reach a finding of a case being frivolous, and then what are the consequences when somebody files frivolous?
Well, with an asylum case, you have to file the I-589 application, and of course that application is 10 pages, and you have to answer certain questions on the I-589, including and you would include your declaration most likely on that as well as a supplement, and so that's the written testimony. And so we go through the entire case, starting from question 1 on the I-589 and going through the entire case. And basically, when you're looking at a case which may be frivolous, you can see the written testimony is written and these answers are there. However, verbally, it could be very different. They could have different years when, for example, things happened, or different time frames, and so we'd have to analyze it, pretty clearly. You would have to state, well, for instance, on your I-589, on your written statement, you said you were harmed, say in, 2000, I'm giving an example, 2010 by such and such a group or by the government. And however, verbally, you said this happened, say in 2015. So there's a 5-year difference. So that's a major discrepancy. You have to analyze that. I mean, some people are not good at dates or so forth. But if there was a number of discrepancies like that you would consistently see throughout the interview, then those would be red flags. And we unfortunately we as officers, or we have to. We have to adjudicate cases in a certain way. Well, I would say unfortunately, but we have to abide by the law. So that's those cases are just frivolous or what have you. And I mean and it does happen. Unfortunately, I think what happens is some individuals out there, they may talk to their friends, or they may talk to some others, and maybe the harm didn't actually happen to them, but they're including that harm as their own, or taking ownership of that particular harm, which may not be the actual case. And so those are the types of cases.
What about the 1-year rule? We spend a lot of time focusing on that with our clients. Do officers get as hung up on that as we do? Is it truly a black letter thing? Do officers have discretion?
Yeah, I mean there is some discretion if somebody's in status. For example, say you came on an F1, student visa, you're studying, say, at Washington University in St. Louis and so forth, and you're in status the entire time. So the 1-year rule in that particular case would not apply. So there would be an automatic exception to that 1-year policy. So the person, as long as the person remains in status, then that's one type of exception to the 1-year rule. I mean, there are some other exceptions as well, but it can be kind of a strict criteria. If somebody clearly came as a tourist, came on a B1, B2 visa, and they stayed here, beyond their 6 months, for example, so they were given authorization to remain here, and they applied for asylum, say 2 years after their entry. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's a pretty clear-cut 1-year filing deadline issue. And so there are, like I said, there are some exceptions. There's some medical exceptions. There's some exceptions if you have inadequate counsel, for example, and there are some other exceptions. But I think that the major exception would be if somebody is maintain legal status or not. That's one of the major criteria.
Our guest today is Allan Schwartz, former asylum officer. He's adjudicated over 10,000 asylum applications. Allan, I'd be very interested to know, walk us through the lifeline of a case that you receive. So how long before the interview do you find out about it? How much time do you have to read it? How much time do you have to handle it? And what are sort of the expectations after the interview?
Sure. Well, so like I said, I retired a few years ago, but basically up until I retired, we would handle between, say, 9 and 12 cases a week. That's the number of cases that we would handle. And normally what would happen is we would receive the file, the A file, the day of the actual interview. We'd have not a lot of time to look at the file, but after seeing so many files and so many cases, I was very familiar with what a file looks like, what to look for. So we'd have, I don't know, say, I give an example, 15, 20 minutes or so to look through a file. If the file's a little more complicated, we'd have a little more time to look at it. Then we call the applicant in for the interview. The interview would normally last a couple of hours on average. I would say 2 hours, sometimes a little bit more, maybe a little bit less on a very easy case. But so we do that interview, and then before COVID, normally what would happen is we'd have a 2 weeks to ask the applicant to come back for the decision. So we as officers would have to basically make a decision, adjudicate that particular asylum claim within that 2-week window. And that's what we would do. And these are cases that are out of status. If they're in status, of course, we would mail out the decision. It would be a different. They would get, for example, if it's a negative, it would get a notice of intent to deny. And everything would be through the mail. So that would be a different type of decision. But normally, as I said, we had 2 weeks to make that decision, and that's what we did. So we had to work, relatively quickly to do that. There are, of course, there maybe have been some cases, and I think that the criteria for going through the security checks became a lot tighter after 9/11. There many more extensive security checks. So even though you may have a decision, there's some security checks that are outstanding, and we'd have to wait till the security checks would clear before, say, a final decision was rendered.
Is it more work for an asylum officer to approve a case or to deny a case?
Well, that actually depends on the case. It's case by case. Some cases may be easier to approve than refer or deny, and in some cases may be easier to refer or deny. It just kind of depends on the case. That's very case specific. I know the sort of I think I've heard out there in the immigrant community that it's easier for asylum officers to refer a case to the IJ, to the immigration court, for example, or deny than actually grant a case. But that's not necessarily the case in my particular circumstances as an officer. It just depended on the case. Some cases that were very clear cut, very easy to adjudicate. It was very easy to grant asylum to.
Allan, what should lawyers or asylum applicants think about when it comes to supplementing a case? If there have been years and years that have happened between the filing of the case, and then sometimes you get an asylum notice of an interview with like a 14-day turnaround.
Right.
What suggestions do you have for that?
Yeah. As far as supplemental, I mean, what's going on now, as I'm sure obviously, Jim, and probably many of the audience who's listening knows as well, there's maybe over 1 million cases in the affirmative asylum backlog. That's over 1 million cases. And cases have been waiting years and years, 6, 7, 8 years. I had an applicant that called me that was waiting 10 years just recently, just to get an interview,
Right.
let alone a decision. So a lot of these, applicants are, a lot has happened during that time period. And I know, a lot of applicants now are very frustrated by waiting so many years just to get an interview. They're filing Mandamus suits, the writ of Mandamus. And I'm getting a lot of calls. I have been getting a lot of calls recently of people, that have just been waiting all these years, and now they're interested in Mandamus. So if it's been so many years that have passed, I believe it is really essential, for some type of supplemental, application, not application, but a declaration, that could be, obviously written as a supplement, to the original application, or, during the interview, obviously, you're going to be asked, say you filed back in 2016 for asylum, and now it's 2024, so it's been eight years. A lot has changed, and sometimes country conditions change as well. So what maybe the country was in one particular situation then, and the country conditions have changed now. So you're going to be asked a lot of questions, current questions, because even though you filed many years ago, say the interview is now, it's going to be what's going on currently. What's happening currently in your country, why you're afraid to go back to your country right now. So all that information will be, discussed during the asylum interview. And of course, I would think obviously the applicant would have to be well prepared, and the attorney would have to be prepared as well to explain all of that.
You mentioned one of my favorite topics, which is the old writ of mandamus. And a lot of people ask me, Jim, is the officer going to be mad that I sued USCIS? A lot of them come from countries where if you even think about, there's no mechanism to sue the government. And if you ever try, they'd throw you in jail. Can you talk to me about that as far as what people's expectations are or whether those fears are well-founded?
Yeah, I mean, that's actually something that I was not familiar personally with that, because when I was working, most of my 20 odd years, we had an applicant file for asylum and they get an interview, say, within a month or maybe a short time afterwards. So that was most of the time. This huge backlog of cases waiting so many years for the interview is relatively, I would say it's not new, but the backlog has grown tremendously. From, like I said, maybe when I retired back, a few years ago, there was a few 100,000. Now it's over 1 million cases in the affirmative asylum backlog. So mandamus now, I think, is becoming more known to the immigrant community, as well as many attorneys are doing mandamus the lawsuits. I can't state from personal experience, if what that would be like if you had interviewed a case who did, the file the mandamus, because I didn't actually interview anybody in that circumstance or in that, they had that scenario. So I really can't personally answer, what that's all about, nowadays. I've heard from some, attorneys that that it makes no difference whatsoever. This is something that that the applicant has the right to file. I mean, the government has an obligation, to interview somebody and adjudicate a claim within a certain number of days, and if it's beyond that, that's become an issue. But I can't relate to that on a personal level, because that really wasn't the experience that I had. That's more of a recent development.
One last question, and then I want to get to some of the listeners' questions. When you're looking at a file, just for everybody who might not even know that much about asylum, what makes a strong case? What are you looking for? I know a lot of people want to talk about everything that happened to everybody else in their country. I always ask them to focus on, their fear, their individual fear. But walk us through what makes a strong case, and then what makes maybe a weak case.
Yeah, I mean, a strong case, obviously, as you mentioned, you would have to, base your, they have to explain very clearly what happened to you in such and such a country. And you have to be very clear on the events, what happened, when they happened. Some people are better at dates than others, but basically, when these events happened, what type of harm you may have suffered, and who the persons were who were harming you. I mean, were they the government or individuals or groups that the government couldn't control? So be very clear about all of that. What happened to you and who was harming you and for what reason, because it has to be on a ground. There's 5 protected grounds for asylum. It has to be on one of those grounds, not just, as I mentioned earlier, for economic reasons, but the 5 protected grounds for asylum. If that's very clearly written and also stated, verbally, for past persecution, if that would be a good case, particularly if it rises to the level of past persecution, which is of course very case specific, and then be also very clear on the reasons not wanting to return to your home country, based on who do you fear, and why do you fear either the government or maybe a group that the government couldn't control. Why do you fear them? And also there's the issue of like internal relocation. Would it be possible, for example, if you live in a very large country, to relocate in another part of that country? So going into that also is important. So if you can explain that very well in the I-589, and it's it has to be something that you, as an applicant, if it's your case, you're very passionate about what happened, and many times there's a lot of emotions that go on, and so forth. And I think so if that's very, very clearly defined: past persecution, fear of future persecution, and who the persecutor was, and so forth. Those are strong cases, obviously based on the 5 grounds. The weak cases, as I mentioned before, cases that are just, somebody, may not have a case, but maybe they've, heard of things happening, or a country is in turmoil, and they tie that turmoil to them individually, and they're forgetful of dates, they're for times, they're unclear what happened exactly, or who the persecutor was, and so those are weak cases.
All right. Well, that was all very, very helpful. I'm going to share real quickly where people. I'm not stopping the conversation. I just want to get that up there for a little bit so that people
Sure.
can. I put your website up there. So, all right. So, I had some good comments. I want to get to them. Some questions. All right. Let's see. Here we go. My scrolling went away. That's really weird. All right, here we go. Jay Cruz asks, asylum question for Allan. Is it possible to establish the possibility of future harm with little to no past harm? Example, fled the country 6 years ago and haven't gone back because of government oppression.
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't have to be only based on past harm or past persecution. You could have a well-founded fear of future persecution, even though you did not experience, past harm. I mean, obviously, if you experience past harm, there's a presumption, if country conditions haven't changed in that particular country, that you're going to experience similar future harm. But there are countries, for example, where the conditions have changed dramatically, and you may be eligible for a grant of asylum based on future harm. So it's definitely that there are claims that are very possible with just future harm.
Okay, excellent. Here's one from GG. Asylum question for Allan. For asylum cases that have been in process for 5 years, how long more does one have to wait, and what is the possible next step to move the case forward? Anything other than mandamus?
Well, I mean, there are. I mean, initially, I would say, you could always contact the asylum office directly. Maybe some offices have something called a short list, which would be, put on a short list for an interview. Where you would get a short time to actually to get a notice to prepare. I mean, there are other avenues. For example, contacting your congressperson, your senator in your particular, state that you're in. You can see if sometimes they do. A lot of times they have immigration experts on their staff, and perhaps they can intervene on your behalf. There's something called the ombudsman. That's an office within the government, the ombudsman's office within USCIS, and I guess you can contact them as well to see if they can maybe intervene. But I would say, and you could try all those avenues before filing the writ of mandamus, and see where that goes. Unfortunately, what I've been hearing from a lot of people that contact me is they've tried those avenues, and those avenues haven't been successful, and so they're just at this point they want to go ahead with mandamus.
Here's one that I liked from our friend Alejandra. Is there an approximate rate percentage of valid versus not so legitimate cases that you noticed?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I interviewed and adjudicated, like I said, maybe over 10,000 cases, and I would say personally, I was always inclined, to give the benefit of the doubt to an applicant. A lot of cases are 50-50. It's not really clear, exactly where to go or how to adjudicate. And percentage-wise, there are, I can't give an exact number, but there are cases out there of just frivolous, claims, individuals that maybe want to get work authorization, because with asylum, you can get work authorization after 150 days of filing your claim. And so there are some people that just, maybe want to get that. They really don't have a claim, or there are some unscrupulous, individuals out there that are trying to so-called help these people, but they're not filing legitimate claims. And that's it's a sizable number. I don't know exact, percentages, but those are sizable numbers of claims out there.
Allan, what about the disparity between the different asylum offices and the asylum courts? I mean, how in the world can 3% of applicants in Atlanta have at the Atlanta Immigration Court have approvable claims, but like 55 to 60% in San Francisco? How can that be? Does USCIS even care about that?
Well, I mean, it's not only the immigration courts with the IJ or EOIR, but it's also within the asylum offices around the country. There are disparities between rates, between grant rates. I can just say that all the asylum officers are trained in a certain manner. But some of them come from different backgrounds. I came from a human service background,
pro-refugee, pro-asylum, pro-refugee, pro-asylum
that
view.
was my background,
Yeah.
and there are others with similar backgrounds, worked for the UNHCR, worked as immigration attorneys, whatever. But there are some that came from more of a law enforcement background, and they always tried to get sort of a mix in the asylum, division, a mix not only from certain backgrounds, but from a variety of backgrounds. So that that may have something to do with it. Maybe some offices get claims that are better than others. Maybe some offices, have a lot more attorneys that applicants hire. And usually, when you do hire an attorney, the case is stronger historically because, the attorneys, know the immigration attorneys know, all about these claims and how to file and so forth and so on. So some offices, like I said, may have more of that. Some offices, may have, the percentage of people living in, that particular jurisdiction, maybe from certain nationalities, and and certain nationalities may have claims that are maybe not the best claims. So it kind of depends. Some might be just the office culture. I mean, some offices, have a different culture within, even though they're asylum offices, they may have a different culture. And the same, I think it's true for the immigration court. I mean, I've seen those statistics, and, some immigration judges are much more lenient, are much more favorable, towards an applicant, and others are not. And I've seen that disparity also. So, I think it's a multiple factors that go into that.
All right. Diodone has a question. What evidence do you look for in an asylum claim? Do you only take the person seeking asylum's word?
Oh, no. I mean, we look at country conditions very strong. I mean, you can, if you just take the applicant's word and you don't look at country conditions, I mean, you're not doing your job, because it's what's happening in that particular country that's going to dictate, like what happened, and the asylum officer has resources at his or her disposal, all these country conditions information, and so that, somebody can say whatever, but you have to verify that with the country conditions. And also, a lot of times, applicants bring in documents. They bring in, say, documents from a hospital, or documents from a police report, or so forth and so on. And sometimes the officer may ask for the original document to verify. I mean, unfortunately, there are, a lot of individuals that would bring in documents that are not real. They're, fraudulent documents, and, so like I said, it's very case specific. But definitely we look into the country conditions, as well as what, documents are brought in and so forth.
How are you doing on time? Are you okay? Can you keep going? Or
I'm fine. Yeah,
okay.
I'm fine.
All right, great. Another good question. can an asylee ever go back to their country? This is something a lot of people talk about, especially sometimes people will file an asylum claim. It takes forever. Then they end up marrying a U.S. citizen, and then they want to go back to their country. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are, obviously, if you've applied for asylum and you're waiting to get an interview, and unfortunately it's many years sometimes nowadays, if you go back to your country, you're basically saying, I don't have a fear of going back. So that's going to be a really hard, when you do get an actual, an interview date, that's going to be a really hard question for you to answer in a way that's going to convince the asylum officer, you went back there. I mean, there are, for example, there might be, reasons, where you have to go back for a certain reason, and then you may be able to somehow, remain incognito, or I guess it's possible, but I would, as personally as an asylum officer, and I would highly recommend that if a person files for asylum, that they don't return to their country of origin, because that's one of the major criteria is you have a fear of going back.
Here's a great question. Alejandro always has lots of good questions. What are some of the most common mistakes an asylum seeker makes during the interview? Any advice for them?
The common mistakes well, I would maybe say it like this: if you have a very good claim, and you tell your story, it's that's going to be a really, really strong asylum claim and interview. Because the person's going to know what happened to them. The mistakes will be if you put something in the application which is, say, not real or not legitimate. You're just adding something which you...
Or embellishment. Embellishment is something that I really think about.
Embellishment. Perfect word, Jim. If you embellish, or even beyond embellishment, if you put something which is completely not the case, but you thought it would help your case, but it's not the truth, then, yeah, those are mistakes. And, the asylum officer is, very... is trained to look at any type of discrepancy and so forth. And if you do embellish, for example, and you're not comfortable with the embellishment, or you sort of squeamish about that, or just there are ways to sort of look at what you're saying, and so those could be mistakes. So it's obviously always the best, the best claim would be the one who is sitting in front of you, the applicant, who experienced past harm and or future harm based on one of the 5 characteristics. Yeah, but a mistake would definitely be to embellish or put something in there which is not the case.
All right, so now I want to talk a little bit. I want to let you go in just a minute, but I want to walk through. I'm an immigration attorney. I have a client, or I'm an asylum applicant, and I am getting ready for my interview, or I've been waiting a long time and I figure my interview is coming soon. What does it look like to hire you? How much does it cost? How does the process work?
Right. So basically what I do is I only work with applicants who have immigration attorneys. Since I'm not an attorney myself, I can't provide any sort of legal advice. So I only work with an applicant who has an upcoming interview, affirmative asylum interview, has an attorney. And depending on the complexity of the case, well, first of all, I'll tell you a little bit what I would do. I would ask them to submit to me the I-589 asylum application with their declaration, so I'm familiar with what their case is. And then I would do about a 2.5 hour maybe mock interview via Zoom, or that's a platform that's used. And then I provide feedback to the attorney. I don't provide feedback directly to the applicant, because the applicant has an attorney, and the feedback would have to be a team effort with
Smart.
me, the applicant, and the attorney. So I provide the feedback to the attorney. So at this point, depending on the complexity of the case, the price would be it would be a flat fee between $600 and $750 per case.
How much did you say? I'm sorry.
Between $600 and $750. $600 to $750.
That's a great deal. That's a great deal. Okay. All right. Well, that's your website. Is that? Oh wait, hold on. That's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Yes, that's the best way.
Huli's making me some signals. She's pointing to me. Are you pointing to Daphne? No? Hold on. I'm going to pull her up here. What's up? You're on mute.
I was saying I just wanted to say hi to Helen, and confused need is want to ask some questions about asylum.
Okay, is that okay, Allan? You okay?
Sure, I'm fine.
Thanks, Huli. Go ahead, confused and need an answer.
Hello, sir. Mr. Allan, I hope you are doing well. I am a pending asylee, and I believe you are the best person to answer the question I'm going to ask today. After that, I also have a short question to Mr. Jean. My first question to Mr. Allan would be, as a asylum officer, how do you evaluate an applicant that
retired? Remember, he's retired. He's a retired asylum officer.
I'm retired.
Yeah.
I'm retired.
Yeah. So previously, when you had that experience, how did you evaluate an applicant that has some sort of conviction, not a felony, not misdemeanor, like?
Oh, well, I mean, obviously, that's one question that is asked. It's asked up front at the I-589 whether you've ever been arrested, detained, put in prison, and so you would analyze that. If it's a misdemeanor, for example, you would ask for the documentation. If you have the documentation about the misdemeanor, and you would basically evaluate what occurred. So it's case by case. I mean, depending on what happened. But that is a question that's raised initially when you go through the I-589. That's one of the questions that is asked. So you have to be prepared, obviously, to answer that question.
So there's discretion that the officer. So if the person has a credible fear and a strong asylum case, but they have criminal convictions, can that outweigh the grant?
I mean, every case is individual. I mean, it's kind of hard to answer because it depends on what the criminal conviction is. If it's a felony for a conviction or versus a misdemeanor. I mean, depends on all of that. I mean, there is asylum law, that we have to analyze, not just the individual case, but also what the conviction is and how that all would interplay would be a case-by-case basis.
All right. Well, that's great, Allan. Anything else that people need to know or understand, or is that visaconsults.com the best way to get a hold of you?
That is, yeah, that's the best way. That's my website and my by email or my email is once you log into the website. You can get my email. So I normally get emails or sometimes calls as well, and that's on the website, my email and my telephone number. So any of those ways would be, and I'd be happy. Like I said, I think one of the big fear factors is what it's going to look like, and since I've done so many interviews and in the past and adjudications, I think this will be very valuable for you to get a mock interview and get a clear-cut idea of what it's going to look like.
Thank you, Allan, so much. This is great. I hope you'll be able to come back in the future. I enjoyed this very much. I feel like I myself as a lawyer learned a lot. Okay,
I'm glad. Yeah, I'm happy to come back, and I always I have family still in St. Louis, so I know you usually come once a year. So
yeah, we know when you're coming. We'll get lunch.
Not yet. I don't know. You should. I came last summer. I'm not sure, but I usually come like once a year. But definitely, I'll.
Yeah, maybe we go to a Cardinal game and hit.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Thanks, Allan.
I was a big Cardinal fan growing up.
Awesome. See you, buddy.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye. Well, that was a real treat. I feel like I learned a lot. Somebody turned the lights on in here. I don't know why. The lights are on. All the lights are on, so it's a little brighter than usual. But that was great, wasn't it? Don't you guys think that was really nice? If you just want to send Allan a note thanking him for coming on, that'd be great. Or if even better, you're thinking about working with him, I think it's just such a great service, and I'm going to start recommending it to our clients here at the firm. All right. With that being said, we got about 15 minutes left. Tomorrow's show will be a regular old show, just boring old Jim, 4 p.m. Central tomorrow. No show on Wednesday, and then we'll be back on Thursday, I think. Yeah, Thursday and Friday we'll do shows. All right. Wise Give has been waiting patiently. Hello.
Hi, sir. How are you?
Good.
So I have a question which was not relevant to asylum. That's why I was just waiting.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I've sent an email to you as well. Like I initially came in United States on B1, B2 visa. On later stages, I applied for change of status and got approved for F1.
Okay.
And I applied while my I-94 was valid. And after receiving F1, I was maintaining all the rules and regulations set by the SCVP. So nothing was wrong. I applied recently for my spouse and children, the F2. They got refusal on F2, and after like couple of weeks, I received an email which says that your non-immigrant visa has been revoked.
Yep. They don't like anything that you did. They don't like anything that you did. They don't like it when people come on a B1 and then change. So
Yeah.
if you had asked me, hey Jim, do you think my spouse and kids are going to get an F2? I would have said probably not.
Yeah, but that is something very normal that people apply for F2 and their families get refused. But none of them received this email that your non-immigrant visa has been revoked, because they don't like this change of status thing. But still, it is within the law. It is nothing beyond law.
Just because it's within the law doesn't mean you should do it.
Yeah, I totally understand that, but there was a reason. Like I had a spine surgery before coming here, and then I was still struggling. I was not allowed to travel back. So for that reason, I received the I-20 from a university from a proper course, and I applied for I-539 while my I-94 was valid. I never overstayed or nothing like that.
Okay.
So based on that, I got my F1 approved, and I started studying, doing good with my courses, passing everything on time.
Okay, so what's the question?
The question is like now, what should I do? Like, what is my way forward? Do I need to contact the consulate, or I'm not even sure that do I need to leave the country or still stay in the country, or like.
No, you can stay. You can stay on your expired visa, but once you leave the United States, you're probably not going to come back. So in theory, you could stay here all the way until you become a citizen if you maintain your status and change your status and do everything you're supposed to. But I think it's going to be a pretty. What country are you from?
I'm from Pakistan.
Right. So, so in theory, you could, finish your studies, get OPT, get H-1B sponsorship, get a green card. But up until the time you get your green card, if you leave the United States, they're not gonna let you come back, I don't think.
Yeah, I was aware of this thing that even my B1, B2 was there for like till 2027. I was aware of this thing that if I leave the country, I cannot come back on that visa. I obviously need a new F1 sticker.
And I don't think they're going to give you one. That's the point.
Exactly. Yep. So my question is like, in order to manage this situation, can I leave the country to Mexico and apply for my F1 sticker? And in case my F1 sticker got rejected, can I come back to United States based on the auto revalidation of I-94?
Based on the what?
The revalidation of my status, like within 30 days.
Apply. Nope. I mean, you can't. I mean, let's say it's a 99% chance that you go to Mexico and you get to come back, or a 98% chance. What happens if the 2%, if you don't get back in the United States and can't come back for 10 years? What happens then?
Yeah, obviously, I can't take that risk. Obviously, I was just considering that if legally I'm eligible for that relaxation, then obviously I would love to.
You seem to be someone who really likes to hammer the rules and say, because it's in the rules, I get to do it. But you're not listening to me. My job is to deal in worst case scenarios. If you had said to me, Jim, I'm on a B1, B2, and my back hurts, I need spinal surgery, I want to change to an F1, I would have said, wise give, that's a bad idea. Especially if you're thinking that your family's going to come. They're probably going to be pissed off. They're not going to let them come, and they might even revoke your visa. So if we go back in time, I would have told you most of this was going to happen. So this was never a good plan.
Okay, and this revocation will definitely disturb the preposition for my OPT after completion of my degree. Or
I think you can go right through to OPT. I think if you got selected in the H-1B, you're fine there too.
Okay, and for any, like if I found an employer and they file I-140 or something like that, like this.
As long as you don't leave, like I said, I think you can go all the way up to green card to citizenship.
Okay, the only problem
I'm going to move on. Okay, I got some more people waiting.
Gotcha. So my last question is like, can I apply for my family for any other category, or like I need to wait for my green card and then I can apply for my?
I don't think they're giving them anything until a green card.
Got it, sir. Got it, sir. Thank you. Thank you
All
for
right.
your time.
Yep.
Thank you.
See ya. Huli, please kick Vicus out of the group. I'm tired of hearing from him. Please kick him right on out. Thank you. All right. Tina's been waiting for a while. Hi, Tina. Tina, you're on mute. Tina's working on hair. Tina, can you hear me? I can't hear you. You're on mute or something.
Hi, Jim.
How are you?
I'm fine. Give me 1 minute. Right. I want to ask a question.
Sure.
I've been on your show before. I don't know if you remember. I was the lady with the Nigerian fake divorce and the original one.
That's not very specific around here. We get a lot of Nigerian fake divorces.
No, I have the original and I have the fake.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That was given 601.
I remember.
Right. So now they approved the case already.
Good.
So, but what happened now? My kids are going for, they asked them to come before they approve the case. So I don't know what kind of question I'm expecting. Like, am I going with them or my husband is going with them? Then what kind of question would they be asking them?
This is overseas?
Yeah, it's here in US, yeah.
So you're going to have a green card interview, or what? What kind of interview are you going to have?
They are going for green card interview, that's I-485.
And you're worried about what are the questions they're going to ask?
What are they going to ask them?
Everything. They're going to ask about the relationship. They're going to ask about their immigration history. They're going to ask about the divorce decree for sure. They're going to be very suspicious of all that. So it's not going to be a fun interview. It's going to be, everyone's got to be fully ready and fully educated. You probably want to bring a lawyer because it's not going to be fun. What field?
No, not for me, for the kids. Atlanta. They approved that one already. They approved the I-485 for mine already.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, then
So I'm talking about them going for interview now. So am I going with them or my husband is going with them? Then if it's me, what are the questions that we'll be expecting? Or if it's my husband or they're going by themselves? Because one of the kids, she's 22 years already.
Yeah. And so the kids are all overseas.
No, they're here.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's going to go, right?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. Is he going with them or me? Or everybody?
Everybody should go because you're not in charge. The officers are in charge. So they get to ask whatever they want. So everybody should be there. Everybody should be ready.
Okay. So what do you think they're going to ask us?
It's about the relationship. They're going to want to know the timing of everything. They're going to want to know where everybody was. They're going to want to know how old the kids were when your relationship started with that.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry for so much because they didn't approve it based on the waiver, as you said, that if the lawyer knows what he's doing, that we argue that we don't need the waiver.
Yeah, good.
So when he submitted it was 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks, they approved it. So they didn't use the 51 waiver.
That's great. I'm glad somebody smart read your situation. All right. Thanks, Tina.
Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you for the good job you're doing. Thank you. God bless you.
Bye, Tina.
Okay, bye.
Hey, look who's here. It's our buddy Jamal. What's up, man?
Hello. How are you?
I haven't seen you in a while.
I've just been super busy between traveling to Nigeria and back.
Yeah. Good. Well, what's up?
I'm trying to get all the documents together for my wife's green card, and I'm just trying to figure out, do we need I know one of the documents is we need affidavits attesting to the marriage, but do you think that we really need it, or do we?
It's an overseas case. I think that they're going to take it at face value. I know that you have lots of evidence of your communications with her and everything else. So I think maybe one or two, but I wouldn't go crazy on it.
Does it need to be on her side, or can I just do it from the ones on my side?
Oh yeah, just from your side. That's fine. I mean, they're always going to take the affidavits of U.S. citizens a little bit more seriously.
That makes total sense. That's basically all that I had. Just trying to get everything together. So we're working to hire you guys for our case. So
I'm looking forward to it. We'll see you soon.
Sounds good.
Bye, Jamal. Everyone's in the comments. Glad to see you. See you, buddy.
Thank you.
All right. I hope everybody's getting along nicely in the comments. Whenever I see someone giving Laura a little trouble, then I know things are off a little bit. Nurse Laura runs a show over there. Hina runs a show over there. Huli runs a show over there. So don't be giving lip to those we love. All right. Ito is here. What's up, Ito?
Hi, sir. How you doing? Can I be out of camera, please?
You are off camera. Yes.
How you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Always up. Thanks.
This is one of my favorite shows ever. I loved having Allan on, so that was great. What do you got for me?
So I want to ask some question about about my application last time.
Okay.
So, I just applied, and thank you very much for everything because it's because of you that I can put up all the application together. I sent more than 100 pages, so it wasn't even in the box. I sent it even in the box. So I have some key question, and I want to ask because I came in 2021 December. I work in July 2022.
2002?
2022. I came out in 2021 December.
Are you saying 22 or 2002?
2020, 21. I came 2021.
Let's back up now. Where are you from?
Togo.
Oh, Togo. We love Togo. When did you come to the United States?
December 2021.
On a visit visa, student visa, what?
F1.
F1. Okay. And did you go to school?
Yeah, I'm a student in my statue.
Okay, great. And what are you studying?
IT, cybersecurity. First of all, when I came, I did English.
Okay.
Because I'm from French country.
Sure. Okay, so you're still in valid F1 status. Okay, then what?
Yeah, so in 2022, July, I was having some money problems, so I started working outside the campus.
Okay.
So
did you ever mark that you're a U.S. citizen when you got those jobs?
No. It's just under the table. I didn't fill any form.
Okie doke.
Yeah. Okay. So in 2023, like April, something like that, I met my actual wife. So 2023, last year.
You met your what wife?
My actual wife, my current wife, my wife.
Current wife. Okay.
Yeah. So in April last year. So and by the grace of God, she got pregnant. I think it was August or July, something like that.
Yeah.
So we got married in November.
Okay.
Last year, and we filed the application just last week.
Last week. Okay, and I'm sorry. I think you said she's a U.S. citizen, right?
Yeah, she's a U.S. citizen.
Okay, I'm with you so far. Go ahead, Ito.
So when I'm putting the application together, I remember that you used to say that when you work without authorization, when you marry a U.S. citizen, when they ask the question I-485, I say yes. When they ask me also, did you violate the term of your visa? I say yes also there.
Correct.
I say yes also the two parts. So, and I remember also you used to tell me that you used to tell us like with all the video that every time when you want to send something, you send everything.
Yeah.
So I said, like I said in the beginning, I sent more than 100 pages. 1,000, my bad. 1,000.
1,000 pages about the marriage, about the relationship?
Relationship, marriage, when we are together, because even when she used to come to see me, one day she came, they towed her car in my apartment. I want to pay the car toll, so I put all those stuff inside, the bank statement.
Okay, Ito, so far everything you're telling me makes me happy. I like everything you're telling me so far. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. What's the bad news?
So the question is like I want to ask when I send the application that with the G1145. When how soon I can have the notice? The notice the reception, like they receive the package.
When did you file?
I think it was it was February 2000, February 2029.
So you mean like 5 days ago?
Yes, I'm so stressed.
But you're stressing out your receipt notice. All this is what we're talking about. Where's my receipt notice? That's what you want to know. Oh my God, he's laughing. You guys can't see him on camera. He's laughing, and his wife's over on the right. She knows. I bet you $10. You can tell me. I bet you $10. You're driving your wife crazy. Where's my receipt notice? Where's my?
She's here. She's just laughing here.
Yeah. Because you're driving her nuts, and now you're calling me to drive me nuts. You filed 5 days ago, my brother. You filed 3, 2, 1 on Thursday. Come on, man. Come on. Probably a couple weeks. Did you send it? Did you send it Federal Express or mail or what? You got proof of delivery?
FedEx.
Yeah, dude, you're fine, man. Probably a month or so.
Okay.
You're still in school, right?
Yeah, I'm still in school.
And you listed the employment on there, right?
Yeah, I list the employment. I list the employment that I.
Everything's good. Now, listen. When you get your receipt notices, call me back and let me know. So we'll run the timeline with you as your case goes on. Okay, so call me back.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All that. Okay, buddy. Bye. Oh my gosh, I was waiting for something bad. I thought something bad was going to happen. He did everything right. Everything he's done is right. Ido from Togo. That's great. From now on, Ido, put in Ido from Togo. I'll remember that it's you when you type in your name. All right. Well, we were really lucky today. We need to have more guests on here. People that know shit like Allan. Allan knows his stuff, and that was great. So remember, if you want to get a hold of him, go to visaconsults.com. Tomorrow will be episode number 546 of the Immigration Answer Show. Oh, stop the presses. Somebody tell Ido FMOH comms filed on February 16th and got receipt notice on Friday. So that's 2 weeks, Ido. So maybe 2 weeks. 2 weeks, Ido. You just gotta chill. Receipt notice and chill. Episode 546 will be tomorrow at 4 p.m. Central. 4 p.m. Central. I'll be here tomorrow, taking Wednesday off, and then we'll be back Thursday and probably Friday. Hope you all have a great night. Thanks again to Allan for joining us. Thanks for Huli for watching the comments. Thanks for Hina and for Dammy and for all of our friends, Nurse Laura in the comments. It was good to see Jamal. Yeah, emphasis on the chill. Bye, guys. Have a good night.